Smile 2 is a 2024 psychological horror movie, written and directed by Parker Finn. It's a sequel to Smile from 2022 and stars Naomi Scott, Kyle Gallner, and Dylan Galula. A pop star begins to experience increasingly disturbing events as she prepares to go out on tour.
No, wait a minute! What?
He was smiling at me.
Damn, this is such a well done movie. I was really impressed and very surprised, to be honest, because I heard a lot of people going in saying, I didn't watch people's reviews, but I heard at least I think it's amazing. And a lot of people saying that they thought it was as good or better than the first. And that's a big statement because we don't usually see sequels as good as the original, much less ones that are better than the original. And I'm here to say, I think this is actually better than the original. I think it's better written. I think the characters are more developed. I feel like Parker Finn really expanded this universe more and gave us more interesting situations and just set up what I think is a better movie. It feels like that first one, he was learning how to make a movie in a lot of ways, and this one, he has a lot more experience and it shows. But a big part of what makes this movie so good, in my opinion, is Naomi Scott. Her performance is just incredible. I have never seen anyone do a better job of coming off like they're losing their mind. Like they're literally going absolutely crazy. I've never seen anyone do a better job. I'm not saying this is the best I've ever seen, but it's equal to as good as anything I've ever seen. So much so that it actually feels jarring at times. I mean, there are moments in this where it feels like you're actually seeing someone crack apart, and that is a scary thing to see. But the intensity that this movie comes at you with, the way it plays with your mind and expectations, I think are brilliantly done. Another thing that I thought was just incredible about this is the choreography for the dance scenes and all the different horror scenes that have this dance almost component to them, which makes sense because we're focusing on a pop star here who is part of this dance world and this pop kind of big stage performance world. And so they tie that in, they bring the horror to that. And so there's like a big performance pop star element to the way the horror comes at it in this one. But the color palette, the way this movie is shot is just incredible. The shot selections are very creative. The cinematography and editing are super on point as well. And talk about dark and disturbing. I mean, there are some scenes in this that are just absolutely ruthless and creepy and uncomfortable on a multitude of levels. And as someone who has dealt with mental issues of my own, as well as been surrounded by a lot of people that have dealt with mental issues, severe ones in some cases, this movie gets it as right as anything I've seen. This genuinely has a care in the way that it's written for that subject, but also shows the terrifying nature of it and the extremes of it and just all the different layers that it means to have severe mental issues, especially when it comes to psychosis and delusions and just, visions and things like that. This feels so genuine. I also really appreciate how they put this spotlight on what it must be like to be one of these huge celebrities. And no one's crying for them. No one's saying boo-hoo, first world problems or whatever. Yeah, I get that. They have money, they have everything they need, and they show that in this. I mean, she's pampered. She has everything at her fingertips, and yet the pressure of it all and everything that she deals with, it does a great job of showing you that no matter what level you are in this world, no matter what your job is, no matter what your notoriety is, you could be the poorest person to the richest person, everybody has issues. Everybody deals with things, especially when it comes to mental problems. Everybody deals with it the same. And, some of us have issues with those more than others, but we all still deal with a lot of the same things that make us human beings. But this movie is very artistic, very creative. It's well paced. It never feels like it's slow, but it doesn't feel rushed either. It feels like it's taking its time and building these characters and these situations that lead you in, but don't become predictable where you think you know exactly what's going to happen next. But with all that being said, I personally loved this movie, but I definitely think, especially the final act, there's going to be a number of people that are not fully with it, that feel like the movie lost them at that point, or it didn't end the way they would have liked it to. I get all that. But I think if you have seen this and you're watching this and you come out of the theater and you're feeling that way on some level, think deeper, because there are multiple layers of this movie. And it's very important that you realize that you're supposed to kind of come away from this movie with your own take and your own abilities to figure out what you think the ending of this movie is, what the ending of this movie means, the different layers to this, and what they're trying to say with it. So basically, don't come out irritated and just brush it aside and not think about it anymore, but instead actually dive into those thoughts and feelings and what you thought and felt about it, and kind of dissect that and try to figure out what it was you didn't like, what it is you did like, what it was about this that made you feel the ways that you do, and is that what the filmmaker intended? Because for me personally, if I come out of a movie being affected, feeling like the filmmaker had an intention to make me feel a certain way and experience a certain human emotion or thought or process that I'm going through or whatever from their piece of art, that it was a successful movie. It was a successful piece of art. But I definitely think people are going to be mixed on this. There is a lot of artistry to this. It does have a lot to do with, theater and performances and things like that. And there is a theatrical element and a dance element and choreography and things like that in this that also could just be a little bit boring for some if that's just not things that you're interested in. But I do think there's enough scares here. There's enough creepy qualities. There's plenty of gore. I mean, I think this movie definitely goes harder than that first movie did. I'd have to rewatch it to know for sure, but at least it felt to me that the gore was even more intense in this and even more jarring and surprising. There were also some really cool practical effects that were used in this. Unfortunately, there were a few CGI things that I wish they had gone practical instead, but that also has to do with me just seeing a couple movies like Terrifier and The Substance that did everything practical, and it's hard for CGI to ever live up to what practical can do when you have masters of it like we saw in both those movies. But those are minor nitpicks. I personally think this movie is brilliant, and I won't be surprised at all if it makes my top 10 of the year. I mean, I haven't sat down and gone through the whole list yet and looked at every single one, but I think there's a good chance it's going to be there because this movie really is that good. But I do think if you were a fan of the first movie, you're going to enjoy this one too. I can't see you having really been a big fan of that one and not enjoying this, at least on some level, because they are very similar movies. I mean, they do tie together really nicely. I just think everything here was turned up another level. There's better sound design, better special effects, better acting even. And I'm not saying that the acting wasn't great in the first one, because it was absolutely brilliant, but some of the side characters in this, really everybody involved gives a brilliant performance, down to even some of the most minor characters. And that was something that the first one had a very limited cast, and some of the performance, I'm not going to call out anybody or anything, but some of them weren't as good as some of the others. Whereas here, it feels like they really casted well, and everybody gives it a lot of themselves to make this a wonderful movie. And I don't want to forget to mention, there are some really well done jump scares in this. One in particular that really got me, and I even said out loud in the theater, well done, because it was so well paced. And that's the thing. It was something I talked about in my review of the movie Oddity this year, that it isn't always about seeing something new that you've never seen before, because that's hard to do. I mean, a lot of stuff has been done in film, over the past 100+ years, but it's how you do it, how you pace it. It may be something you've seen before, but if the way it looks, the way it's put together, and the timing and all of that is done well enough, it's still going to get you. And it's not just going to be a cheap jump scare that's just a loud bang, because that's not what this movie does. And I really appreciated that about this too, because I thought the first one had a number of jump scares that were decent, but some that felt a little bit cheap. This one, it feels like it earns those jump scares that it does have. And the scares in general aren't just quick, cheap ones. They're dread-filled ones that build up on you, and when they get there, they have an impact. So I think it's definitely worth seeing it in a theater. So do yourself a favor this weekend and get out to the theater and see it there, because it just won't have that same level of impact and enjoyment at home, especially when you're talking about a movie that has big choreography, big sound design and special effects, things like that, that even if you have a large TV at home, it still won't have the same impact as if you see it on a big, massive HD surround sound, Dolby sound, whatever screen, the biggest, best screen you can kind of thing. It won't have that same effect. So definitely get out there and check it out in a theater.
You're not in control! I am!
But that's going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for checking this out. If you enjoyed it, do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and ding that little bell, because that is the best way to keep track of this channel. And when I post videos like this, and I post videos like this every single week. I also want to give a huge, massive, enormous thank you to the Ghost Pirate crew, to you guys over on Patreon, and to the channel members over here. You guys mean so much to me. And if you would like to help support this channel over on Patreon, there's a link down in the description. Or you can become a channel member by clicking on the join button down there and help out the channel that way. But like always, thank you so much for watching. Please crush that like button. And remember, guys, horror can be fun. And if you enjoyed this, click right here to watch me talk about Terrifier 3. And I'll see you guys next time.